this man who posted some threats on Facebook today, do you know who that is?
Yes, we do. At least we know his Facebook name.
Okay. Do you know that his actual identity might be different?
We're investigating that to determine exactly, if it is or isn't. Right now, our detectives are looking into it, and there are people from across the state, sheriff's offices from across the state looking into this. Multiple sheriffs have been identified and threatened, and we are forwarding all our information to the Joint Terrorism Task Force.
So the FBI is actively investigating this as well?
We are forwarding all the information to the Joint Terrorism Task Force. What they do with it, it's up to them.
Has this individual been known to law enforcement before? Has this person made threats in the past to anyone in particular?
If you take a look at his Facebook site, which you can't until we identify him, you will find that he has made threats to several people in the past. So, he identifies himself as a Marxist, and it's ironic about, this is an individual that wants to ban guns, except he wants to kill people. It might be a mental health component maybe associated with this thing.
So, how are you feeling about a threat like this?
Well, I guess there is one upside. The threat is coming from a source outside of Spokane County, so there might be a chance of prosecution on this one. I've learned over the last couple of years that you can threaten to kill the sheriff of Spokane County and get away with it. Hopefully it won't happen that way this time. Maybe one of the other county prosecutors will take these type of threats a little bit more seriously.
Is the threat coming from within Washington State, or is this out of the state of Washington?
This is a resident of the state of Washington.
Just out of Spokane County?
Out of Spokane County.
So can you just kind of go back to just when you were first alerted about the threat, or it came in from a citizen reporting it? Correct? A
citizen called Crime Check from out of county. I advised that they had seen these posts and stated that I apparently am number one on his list. He wants to put a bullet in my brain, so we have our detectives looking into it and moving forward. One of the questions that I've been asked over the last 24 hours is, what's it like? Well, folks, this is the way it is. It's been this way for about the last 3 to 4 years for me. I've lived under multiple death threats, and it seems to be the way people are. If you don't agree with somebody's point, you try to intimidate them and break them into, either shutting up or acquiescing to your point of view. That's a danger, and I don't think that we can afford to, to let that type of bullying, because this is the height of bullying, take place. This individual needs to be located. This individual needs to be charged and held accountable. And maybe if we start doing that, maybe we'll send a message across the board to everybody that wants to be a bully or a keyboard warrior that you're not going to get away with it. Social media, for all its advantages, has probably killed the United States as far as our ability to have sane and reasonable dialogues. Social media is controlled by hate mongers.
So how serious are threats like these? Obviously you've seen a lot of threats online to our high schools in the area, to individual people. How serious are these threats?
You can't take them lightly. The last one I lived under, I had no doubt that the individual was going to try to one day fulfill that threat. This one, you never know. He seems to have all the earmarkings of, that guy that you read about or you guys cover that ends up, shooting somebody, and we all say, well, we saw it coming.
And can you talk a little bit about just how you all are going through this process? Because you said that you contacted the FBI.
Yes.
So they're kind of taking it over, or?
Right now it's a multi-pronged investigation. We have our detectives looking into it. We have members of the sheriff's offices basically throughout the state that have been contacted, and I contacted our executive director of the Sheriffs and Chiefs Association, advised him to put the notice out to all the sheriffs that, anybody that has spoken out in favor of 1639, especially if they've said they will not enforce, they appear to be on the top of this guy's hit list.
Have you been in contact with some of the other sheriffs that have taken a similar stand in light of what's happened to you here?
Off and on, we chat back and forth, emails and things like that. Everybody is taking it, fairly seriously. They're doing their due diligence. And again, I hate to be cavalier about this, but this is the way it is. This is what it's like to be an elected official nowadays. This is how you live your life. And you never know if that person walking up to you is going to be that one that, pretty much ends it. But most of these people never walk up to the front side of you. It's always from behind, so you never see it coming. You just never know. But that is just the way our environment and our country has become. And it's a shame. And I hope someday that we can get back to having rational discussions about topics rather than, these irrational discussions. And it doesn't help when you have reporters that specifically you look at them and go, this has nothing to do with sheriffs enforcing 1639. We can't, because there's nothing for us to enforce. If you take a harsh look at 1639, please point out one aspect of that I have responsibility of enforcing. Now, I sit there and talk to a reporter from the Inlander ad nauseum. Matter of fact, during my last press conference, told him blatantly, do not put words in my mouth, and that's exactly what he did in his article. Yeah, and we wonder why these type of people get ginned up. The simple matter of this is 1639, I as sheriff have nothing at all. I'm going to rephrase this multiple times. There's nothing in 1639 that I enforce. I don't sell guns. We already have the responsibility of arresting people that get guns and they shouldn't have them. Nothing changed there. 1639 simply did one thing. It created a definition for the state of Washington so our state attorney general can ban all semi-automatic weapons, because that's what it did. It created this definition of an assault weapon, assault rifle, which there is no such a thing. It includes every single semi-automatic rifle there is, including the gun that I've carried for 40 years, small game hunting, and that's it. That was the main objective of 1639, was create a definition for the next phase, the banning of those weapons. So I'm asking the media, and I'm asking you reporters, to please get it straight. I, as sheriff, do not enforce 1639. There's nothing in it for me to enforce. That's why I take exception to the peers that I have that have come out and said, we won't enforce it. Well, it's a bunch of empty words, because there's nothing for you to enforce. Too important of a topic to grandstand on. This is a very sensitive area, as we're now learning. Again, 1639 is not going to go away. You'd be surprised at the number of Democrats that have contacted me and say, we didn't realize that this was what was going to happen. I would have never voted for that if I knew that this was going to happen. And all I can look at them and go is, well, maybe next time be more educated in your vote.
When it comes down to it, the person that is, the individual that is sending the threats to you specifically, is this person part of a larger political organization that does use violence to try to get their message across, such as Antifa?
That I don't know. What we do know is he identifies as a Marxist. He apparently does not like Republicans because he threatens. He says all Republicans need to die too, and he's threatened the president, and he's threatened any sheriff that stood up against 1639. That's what we know about this individual. So, you know, it amazes me that that in the United States anybody could really hold to Marxist values, since it's an ideology that actually cost millions and millions of people their lives and is a failed economic concept. Why do we keep going back to that well? It's just mind-boggling for me. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.